So this is an unscripted video here. I'm going to come up with some scripted content coming up pretty quick here. But today I figured before Fire E3 comes tomorrow, I wanted to talk about my quick thoughts involving Fire Emblem on E3 and just Nintendo in general coming up with E3 for Nintendo tomorrow. So my predictions for E3 tomorrow on Nintendo are definitely there's going to be something related to Mario besides Rabbids. I'm very excited that Rabbids is coming out again. The new game looks pretty badass. Beyond that, I think we're probably going to get something from Breath of the Wild. They seem to like to do that at E3. Splatoon 3 will get something. Maybe Mario Golf. Something else new. There will be some things that we'll definitely see. That's the things I definitely expect. Fire Emblem fans, I think you're not really going to be looking forward to anything. Fire Emblem 4 Remake, not highly likely, I don't think. I think lots of people are expecting not a Fire Emblem 4 Remake. I think most people are expecting a new game, but that's just kind of how it is. I think maybe that Project Strategy or Triangle Strategy or whatever it is, that Final Fantasy thing, or not Final Fantasy, Square Enix thing, that might be there, but I don't really think anything else is exactly going to be there in terms of otherwise. I think it's going to be pretty standard. It's not really going to be anything that blows your socks off. There will be something to do with Smash Bros, but just in general, it'll be pretty standard E3 fare. But that's not the only thing we're going to be talking about. I mentioned Fire Emblem 4 Remake, and I wanted to talk about why a Fire Emblem 4 Remake would be such a problematic thing that might be why the game will have a problem no matter what in how it's going to be made. So every Fire Emblem remake before Fire Emblem 4 being Fire Emblem Shadow Dragon, then it was followed up. And I guess Fire Emblem 3 as well was also a remake of the original game. And then Shadow Dragon was another remake of the original game. And then FE12 was a remake of FE3 Book 2. And then we had Shadows of Valentia just a few years back. And all three of those games were very faithful. Shadows of Valentia especially, it felt more like if they went back and made the game again for modern consoles, but kept everything exactly the same and just added new things. It felt like Shadows of Valentia was literally just Gaiden again. And that's good and bad, and that is up to your own interpretation. But if you really liked the original Gaiden, which some people did, I don't think they needed to change a lot about the game. It's kind of a common criticism that that's a bad game, but I think it's very similar to Zelda 2 in that it's not really a true fact that it's a bad game. It's actually just a very misunderstood game. Beyond that, though, we need to talk. And then Shadow Dragon and FE12 are very similar. They added new things like the weapon triangle and whatnot that weren't in the original games, but certainly I think Fire Emblem they weren't changes. The maps were pretty much the same. Lots of the things were the same. I think the rescue staves. The staves had unlimited range like they always used to. The game was pretty much exactly the same, just adding weapon triangle, adding in typical weapon levels, just little things to make the game feel modern and very similar to the previous games, and having weapon refinement and stuff like that. Beyond that, though, Fire Emblem 4 Remake will be battling something that I don't think that any other Fire Emblem game, no matter how it's going to be remade, will battle. Fire Emblem 4 has to battle. In terms of pure gameplay, there's a lot of things that will have to be gone over with a fine-tooth comb, and how you'll do it will very much determine who's going to like the game and how it's going to turn out. But let's kind of talk about the story, because that's something that I think could be left almost completely alone. There's a few little things that I would personally change just to make it better. I would make all the playable characters, especially all of the marryable ones, I'd make them older. It just would be better and simpler. I figure we're just going to have to accept that they're going to tone some stuff down. I hope they leave all the Lopter stuff relatively similar. I think maybe toning down Tilt-Choose Endgame and a few other characters, and just how brutal sometimes the game can be. I think the game generally, though, is pretty simple. Like, Eldigan getting sentenced to death, that's something that they've done before, and he does end up getting killed, but, it's just, these are things that are, and the spoilers, I guess, at this point, but, the game is tough, but I don't think it needs to be expected to get a T for teen rating. I don't think it needs to really dial anything that far back. Just little updates to make the game a little bit more modern and a little bit more accepting in today's more politically charged climate, and just being more accepting. There isn't really a whole lot of big problems with that again, but just in general, the game will be pretty simple. But the gameplay is the big thing that will definitely need to be changed, or not changed, because that's the problem, right? I like to look at like the Resident Evil 1 remake versus the Resident Evil 3 remake. And if you haven't played those games, basically the Resident Evil 1 remake was pretty much, if you took the original game and probably how they wanted it to look, how they wanted it to play, like maybe there's still some technical limitations and stuff like that, but that's just, the Resident Evil 1 remake is just a bit for bit remake. It makes the game have better graphics, it's still the same survival horror. It is a game that is perfect, a really, really good remake, because it makes the game new and interesting and for modern audiences. Then you can look at the Resident Evil 3 remake. That's a game that basically shares the story of Resident Evil, of the original Resident Evil 3 Genesis, but doesn't really share anything else. Like, yeah, it has Nemesis, yeah, Jill's the main character, like, it has all that stuff, but it's an over-the-shoulder game. There's not really any survival horror, there's lots of ammo, there's loads of zombies, horde rushes, there's just not, it's not the same game in that kind of aspect, but it's still a good, fun game. Neryl talks about it, he talks about it way better than I ever could, and that's not the point of this video. So, like, with what I'm saying here is, you can go two different ways with this Fire Emblem 4 remake. You can do a Shadows of Valentia kind of style remake, where you can pretty much make the game exactly the same, just kind of update it with some new things, make it a little bit better, maybe whatnot. Like, because basically everything that like people don't like about the original game feeds into one of the mechanics, and that's the big problem with FE4. Like, for example, the pursuit skill. The pursuit skill is something that I personally don't think is very fair. It makes, basically the pursuit skill is, besides a very select few characters, it makes or break characters. Like, some characters just aren't good because they don't have the pursuit skill. Tilchu is a good example. Like, some characters can make it by without it, and they have like adept and stuff like that, but pursuit skill is major. It is very, very important to the good units versus the bad units in the game. Beyond that, though, even beyond just the pursuit skill problem in Fire Emblem 4, the other thing, but if you take away the pursuit skill, then like half of the characters are going to need new skills or new basic skills to pass down to their kids in Generation 2. And that's a really big problem, because like maybe the pursuit skill is like lower chance, makes it easier to double, but like just that whole balancing thing will become a problem if you don't change it. And that's the inheritance thing is the other thing. What would be the point of the inheritance if you can just pass around killer ass weapons without the trade system? If the trade system is built that way because it's harder to pass around things, and you want to keep the good killing weapons on the units that have them, and it's hard to trade them around because it's just so expensive to trade weapons around and whatnot, and the stat boosters and stuff like that. Fire Emblem 4 is one of the few games that I can think of that both makes it very hard to level up characters and make characters good, and both makes it easier. Because the arena system is really good, and the money system, and like, the arena system helps to make characters really good. And the money system, but the arena system, if you don't like how the arena system is and you get rid of it because it is a little abusable, then you basically need to get rid of the money system, because what's the point at that point? I guess you could maybe get it out, but the money system is a really big thing too. If you get rid of the trade system, or you add a trade system instead of the pawnbroker system, you're just getting rid of half of the game at that point. There's no really big point to playing the game in the way it is, because you're just not, you don't get anything out of it at that point, because if you get rid of and like half of the town in the game, at the beginning of the game, the town system, that's just not there. It's a really strange thing that the whole game works in that way. And like the big maps, yeah, you could change them or like segment them, but like then you're losing the whole part that this is a war, and that's the one thing that Genealogy does really well. This is a war, and it's a war, and that's the important part of the game. The fight is the part. And like the big battles and the large amount of units flying at you, that's the point of the game. The game is meant to feel brutal, and that's the big part of the game and how it plays. I think you could rearrange the maps, but then you're losing the original part of the game and you're pissing other people off that way. So essentially, you kind of have to pretty much restructure Fire Emblem 4 to make it good for modern players and new players, or you're going to have to play similar and keep it to the fans who love Fire Emblem 4. And there are fans who love Fire Emblem 4. Lots of FE YouTubers that say Fire Emblem 4 is their favorite game or one of their favorite games, and that's the really big problem with a Fire Emblem 4 remake. Like, so if I were to make a Fire Emblem 4 remake, I would either make it one of two ways. I would basically just take the old game, maybe make some minor adjustments, like maybe balance it out a little bit. I'd find a way to get rid of the pursuit skill so that everybody can double, like little things like that. But like, basically I would leave almost everything exactly the same. Oh, one thing that I know you can do is the give money command, both on the thieves like do, and also on when you're a partner. Make it so that you don't have to give all of the money away, especially on the thieves, because then it's just it doesn't really work well that way. Yeah, that would be one thing I would adjust. I would, of course, update the game. I wouldn't hate another sprite-based game, but I doubt that's probably in the cards anymore. Probably it'll be an updated game, full voice acting for sure, and definitely full cinematic cutscenes. There's some major parts in the game, without going too deep into spoilers, that need a cutscene, like a cutscene where we see the characters, we see their varying, and I know games now, they show different show different emotions, but these games really need that now. Like, we need to see the full character and their full emotions in some of these parts, because if anything is important, Fire Emblem 4 story is the biggest and most important part. So so far, just from the characters that are in Heroes, their actors are really good, so I'd say bring all their actors on. They're really good. Sigurd's actor's good, Tilchu's actor's good. They're all really good. The other thing I would do if I was just making a remake to satisfy fans, I would introduce some of the characters from Thracia that are definitely very important. Have references to Yvel, or have her in the game. She definitely is important, but maybe not. Silas probably is a big character that needs to be part of it. Just maybe Reinhardt, like, and then Olwen. Like, there's lots of characters who could very well and probably should be in the game to kind of better, if they wanted to make this the true like story, and then just have introduced characters from Fire Emblem 5 that need to be in the game. Fire Emblem 4 sold really well, so I think there is a market for it, especially in America. I think people would really like to play it, but I know it's not always going to be the game that's going to be there. The other thing they could do is they could make a game that is like very much not Fire Emblem 4. They could segment the maps, make the maps different, better balance the game, have like deployment slots, have the arena not be the same way, change all sorts of little things to make the game more modern and make it better for the modern audiences, but you are running the gambit against another thing, and I think you're just dealing with a three-headed dog there, like Cerberus, that you're going to piss off one of the people, no matter what. Somebody is going to be mad about how each person goes here. Like, somebody will not like the new player might not like the money system or anything like that. They might think it's stupid. Why can't I give money to every character? Like, little things. I think the new player would be much more accepting, maybe? I don't know. I'm not a new player, right? I've played Fire Emblem before. The players that have only played the moderner games, they might find it off-putting and stuff like that. I certainly would help, like, if they don't change much, make more tutorials to explain some of the stuff, and so that it's better explained how to do it. And I would do things to help make it so that you can prevent pairings and stuff like that, and better balancing of things beyond just the pairings, and just balance the game a little bit better. I still think the legendary weapons should be overpowered as hell. Maybe not as overpowered as they were, but like, make them good weapons. They should make characters really cool and really good, and that's kind of just my thoughts on that. Or you could go the other way, and here's something that maybe won't appeal to everybody, but it is an idea. I said Fire Emblem 4 is a game about war. And you could make the game a completely different genre, but still be a good remake and still fill out the game. As long as you have all the main characters, as Fire Emblem 4 doesn't have that big of a cast, you could do a Warriors game. In the vein of kind of like that Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity game. That could work. You could do that, and because it's a game about war, and instead of and like that way you could have all the characters, and it's not going to take that long. And maybe that's what they've been doing this whole time. The Warriors, but I'm not saying that is going to happen, but I feel like it could be a really interesting thing if they were to do something like that. But I have never played Warriors. I had no reason to. I'm not a big fan of those characters. I might get it one day though, but it's not a game that I was biting at the bit. But if it was a Fire Emblem 4 remake of Warriors, I think I would buy it. I think I would buy that game, and that would be interesting. But in general, just it's kind of a really big problem, and I'd like to see what Intelligent Systems would do with that kind of game. And it's just a very interesting problem that they would have to overcome. But overall, I think and again, I don't know how soon a Fire Emblem 4 remake is in the cards. I don't know if it's ever in the cards. They did put the original on the Japanese eShop. Maybe we're just going to get a straight translation, which, if we can play it legally, maybe that's exactly what we want. And if that's what we get, that's what we get. But at this point, E3 2021 is coming up. I'm very excited. I'm hoping for some big things from some games. I'm hoping, the Pokemon will be whatever is going to happen in Pokemon. So yeah, but that's pretty much it. Like I said, I do have some scripted content coming down the pipeline. I've done some scripting for it, done some recording of some other games to bring it out. But like in general, right now the game is that's kind of what I'm going to be doing. If you're really looking forward to Thracia, that is coming down the pipeline. But I'm thinking I might start streaming it. But we'll see. I'm kind of getting my setup all going here, so we'll see about that. But thank you for watching if you've made it this far. I realize I've been rambling for 17 minutes now, but thank you so much for watching. Please stay tuned for more content, and if you haven't watched the first few episodes of Thracia, please do. Please watch my content, and just please, and I hope to bring more to my loving viewers soon. So thank you very much, and ciao.